The block and other parts were dropped off at the machinist and they're back now. The block still needs painting, but the bore has been fixed. The flywheel and pulley have been balanced but not lightened. The crank has been balanced and the pistons were going for 86.6. The exhaust valves were 33 and going to 33.5. The intake valves were 36 and we're going to 37.5. We now have all the bits for the engine reassembly, but we'll come back to that later. When I first looked at the battery box, it looked fine. But I started to poke around at the loose paint and then I got the camera out. As you can see, there's quite a bit of loose paint and rust starting to come out there, so I decided to remove it all and treat it while I can. As you can see here, this has been painted over and there's some surface rust which I'll have to treat, and you can see the original paint under here. I then went at it with the wire wheel to get all the rust off and take it back to bare metal. And then I treated the entire area with this special paint that just goes over bare metal. This will seal it and stop it from rusting in the future. I wasn't too concerned about the colour because the battery box will cover this area. When I got this car, it had a tray, but it wasn't original. Now with the paint cured, I can put back an original tray. The benefit of using a factory tray are these two little tube holes here. If the battery was to leak, it would go through those two holes, and these little plastic tubes here connect onto it and then bypass the steering rack and just go straight to the ground. If this original tray was installed, it wouldn't have rusted here because no acid would have dripped through and gone into the metal. Next I need to get the heater box out of the way, and these four little clips hold it in place. Once you have the wiring out of the way, you can pull it to one side, but the cable is still attached. You have to unscrew and manipulate the lever to get it out. This brown cable goes directly back to the battery. However, it's on a block and it has a spare port, so I can use that spare port to power other accessories. I'm going to use this spare block from another wiring loom because I can keep everything looking factory. Now with this recovered block, I'm going to feed two more fuse boxes, one for the front of the car and one for the back. So I've now connected this recovered block to the original block, and this will give me 3 more ports to use. I'm feeding one of the wires from the block to the back of the car via the tunnel, not under the carpet. The tunnel is where all the original cabling goes, and as you can see there's a hook that keeps all the wires in place. The wires are put here to keep out of the way of the gear stick. And just under the handbrake there's this half tube which also holds all the wires in place. Now the wire is fed to where the spare tyre is. This is where the third fuse box will sit. It will power things like the Bluetooth radio and the ignition. But that's something I'm going to come back to later. Just behind the console is a light for the fibre optic loom. This lights up all your switches. This is the fibre optic cable and it's fed by this light bulb here. It actually is not a bad idea to replace this with the LED one. Each series has its own fibre optic loom. This particular one is for a Series 1, and you can tell that by the connectors on here. They're only unique for this model. Luckily this loom is complete even with the little clips still in place. On the other end is where all the fibre optic cables connect to, and it connects back to this light module here where the light bulb fits on this side. You can see here when you shine a light down the fibre optics, it comes out the other end where the switches are and lights them up. The bulbs sometimes don't work because this part that attaches to the car does not make earth. Just simply sand it off and it'll make a better contact. The bulb is controlled via a switch which goes to these two resistors. One of these is used for dim and the other one is used for bright. However, they wouldn't be very useful if you change it to LED, so you can remove them. The passenger door was sticking or not moving at all. As you can see here, the lock is moving really slow. Now you can unscrew the whole locking mechanism, take it out and re-grease it, or the easy option is just spray some WD-40 and sure enough, it works like new. I'll be installing central locking and the actuator just fits here. I've drilled the 2 holes from the outside so I get the right positioning and then place it inside the car. Now with the actuator in place, I ran the cables on the outside of the door because I don't want it to get caught up with the window cabling. It makes its way around the inside of the door, then up to the top and then into the actual panel here. I'm replacing the 2 door jamb switches with a new one just because they corrode over time and they make bad contact. An owner in the past has installed a speaker which goes in the door and it just goes through this bit of heat shrink. As I'm not putting speakers in the door, I am going to pull through the cable so I can use it for the central locking. I've now put in 2 new rubber grommets and a bit of a heat shrink between the 2 points. This worked before in the past, so I'm going to use the same solution. Once again, I've run the cable on the outside of the door to avoid all those cables inside here. But next time, I'm going to work on the electrical system. As always, thanks for watching.